Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 45 of our reading of Rod Serling's Twilight Zone, 26 Unforgettable Explorations into the Realm of the Supernatural, adapted by Walter B. Gibson, and we are going to go over the copyright information, which clearly right here says, find the actual book, here we go. Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone is copyright 1963 by Cayuga Productions Incorporated, and Rod Serling's Twilight Zone Revisited is copyright 1964 by Cayuga Productions Incorporated. All rights reserved. This 1983 edition is published by Bonanza Books, distributed by Outlet Book Company and Random House Company. This book was previously published as two separate works entitled Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone and Rod Serling's Twilight Zone Revisited, printed and bound in the United States, and the Library of Congress. Information is there if you're interested in that. Okay, and we're about to finish Up Beyond the Rim, and we didn't quite have time to finish it up last time, but then we will start reading the next story. So, with all that being said, we will continue. We're going to start off. We're going to start off with the previous paragraph. Okay. Of course, we won't live to see any of that. Even our children will only see the beginning of it. Horn looked back at Martha, who was helping little Chris sit up. Then he flicked the reins. Giddy up, boys. We're stopping off at Hidden Canyon, then on to California. The horses responded, the wagon wheels creaked, and Horn spoke as to himself. And after we get there, I'll bet my son Chris will be remembered long after I'm forgotten. Two men hadn't forgotten Christopher Horn Sr., though. They were living in a far-off future. Dog-tired Sheriff Valentine and Joe Scarney were giving up on their hunt along the rim. The guy must have ducked behind some big cactus right after he went over the rim, declared the sheriff. It beats me. Me too, agreed Joe. It's as if he vanished into nowhere. He just kept ducking farther, I guess. Pick up his gun and bring it along, Joe. And what did you say his name was? Horn. Christopher Horn. It had to be because his son's name was in the encyclopedia. It said Christopher Horn Jr. Sheriff Valentine dropped Joe Scarney at the gas pumps and drove off in his car, half muttering to himself. Christopher Horn, I've heard that name. Now I remember. He was the old-timer who discovered Hidden Canyon back in the 1840s. People had been going right by it until he stumbled on it, but this fellow would be the great-grandson of that Christopher Horn. In the diner, Joe found Mary Lou alone. In answer to her puzzled gaze, he declared, "The man plumb vanished, honey, but he dropped his rifle and I picked it up." Joe noted that Mary Lou was studying the gun, so he looked at it too. Why, it's changed. It's just as if it had been lying in the desert for 100 years. The gun most certainly had changed. Its metal barrel was dulled, its wood stock dried out. Instead of a shiny specimen, it had become a worthless weapon, but it was the same type of gun that Horn had carried. Realizing that, Joe asked suddenly, "Those coins Horn gave you, where did you put them?" "Beside the cash register." Mary Lou turned in that direction. "I didn't want to get them mixed up with the other change, but now they're gone. Maybe one of the truckers took them. Unless Horn never gave them to you, maybe he never was here. Maybe I just stumbled into a gun that somebody dropped 100 years ago. Unless he went back to a wagon train heading west to California in 1847. Back to that boy of his." Mary Lou looked at the encyclopedia, still lying on the counter. Back to make sure that something would happen, just as he read it to us from this very book. That evening, during the brief desert twilight, Joe Scarney and his wife, Mary Lou, stood by the gas pumps, looking toward the ridge of low hills, etched against the fading purple sky. "You know, honey," said Joe, "sometimes at night I forget all the traffic that's going by." He paused as 3 cars shrieked past, and a big truck supplied a certifying rumble. And I sort of imagine that I can see wagon trains rolling west, with one driven with one driven by Christopher Horn, put in Mary Lou, on his way to find Hidden Canyon, and you told him about. I can see that too, Joe, though they should have been there long before this. Odd, the spell of the desert at night. Christopher Horn was a man who pictured strange things too. That evening, when his wagon train reached Hidden Canyon, to be welcomed by the roar of the gushing creek, while little Chris was sleeping quietly, Horn and his wife Martha had strolled up the hill to study the darkened desert. I thought I saw a monster here, Horn confided. Man made monsters, covering more ground in an hour than our wagons could in a week. Perhaps they really are out there, declared Martha, roaring by uh, like you said, Chris. But we can't see them in the dark. We should see them. They'd be sure to have big blazing lights like those I saw on Joe's Cafe, so they could find their way. You're right, Chris. I see lights now, crossing the desert. Look. Horn looked. Horn looked, and for a fleeting moment, he thought he saw them too. Then he and Martha laughed together, their first happy laugh in weeks. As the illusion faded, those lights were the vivid twinkle of the stars themselves, the symbols of past and future, as timeless as the Twilight Zone, through which Christopher Horn had detoured on his way west. And that is it for Beyond the Rim. Now we are going to start the 16 millimeter shrine. Okay, the 16 millimeter shrine. Always when Danny Weiss strolled up the walk to the huge Hollywood mansion, he would shake his head and wonder at it. He was doing that again today after more than 30 years of steady visits. Once it had been one of Hollywood's greatest show places, and for Danny's money, it still deserved that distinction. Of course, Danny was slightly prejudiced. This was the home of Barbara Jean Trenton, famous star of the early talkie days, and Danny had been her agent all through those years, but what amazed him was how the place, like Barbara Jean herself, had retained a lofty grandeur and had never really aged. Yet both had the same problem. They were outmoded in a way that could be worse. Danny entered through the large front door into a gigantic marble floored hall, a product of a Rococo architecture of the Rococo architecture of the early 1920s, and reminiscent of the massive movie palaces that flourished during that period. At the rear was a huge grand staircase leading to the scarcely used upper floors, for Barbara Jean Trenton now lived here practically alone except for a maid named Sally, who now answered the door in response to Danny's buzz. The worry that showed on Sally's face brought an understanding glint in Danny's eyes. He nodded towards a pair of heavy walnut doors at one side of the hall and queried, "Still there in the projection room?" "Yes, and it's getting worse, Mr. Weiss." Sally hesitated, then blurted out, "There's times when I've gone in there and I could almost swear, well, like just now." "Go on, Sally." "Like what, just now?" "Well, I took a tray of lunch in to Miss Trenton, and there was the old picture running, but I just couldn't see her anywhere. So I looked at the screen, and then all of a sudden Miss Trenton was speaking to me, telling me to put down the tray. There she was, right beside me." "Of course," Danny gave a nod. "It takes a few moments for your eyes to get used to the darkness of the room. Watching the screen helped. That's why you saw her when you looked again." "So that's how it is," breathed Sally. I thought maybe something was getting me." "It could be that too," said Danny seriously. I know that something is getting her." He gestured towards the walnut doors. "And naturally, you'd sense it." "Take it easy, Sally, while I try to straighten it all out." Sally nodded and followed Danny eagerly to the projection room to see what his reaction was. Danny knocked and entered, all in one action, but he was still too late to be deceived by any illusion from the screen. The picture was just going off. There was a fanfare of music, and the screened words, "The End," were followed by a white beam like a spotlight from the projection machine, which cut off automatically. The room lights came on, and there was Barbara Jean Trenton, in person, practically taking a bow for the benefit of her agent Danny Weiss and her maid Sally. Barbara Jean Trenton was anything but a faded beauty. Her face was attractive, her manner vibrant, and her figure striking, in black toreador pants, trimmed with gold braid, and a white blouse. Danny, in his turn, provided a really sweeping that uh, bow that the Three Musketeers would have envied. "It's 11 o'clock in the morning," Danny announced, "and the sun is shining brightly. It's a beautiful day in Beverly Hills. The smog is conspicuous by its ambience. The temperature is 84 degrees, and the atmosphere is balmy." "And I," returned Barbara Jean in a slightly metallic tone, "can do without your daily meteorological report." "The big question," Danny returned, "is why don't you do something with them? You sit here in an air-conditioned cavern, showing yourself one outdated picture after another." "Please, Danny," Barbara Jean imposed icily, "I'd rather skip that." "Skip what?" Danny retorted, waving his hand around the projection room. "None of this is any good." "No good, honey. I like you, Frank. I like your frank way, Danny. Let's go to the study." They crossed the vast hallway to the study, which was actually jammed with the remnant of a career, in the form of movie stills, press photographs, souvenir programs, autographed portraits, and carefully pressed orchids. "This is better," Danny decided, "because you can look it over and pick it all apart." "What was the picture that you were showing yourself back in there?" There were two pictures," Barbara Jean delivered the icy tone again. "One was Farewell Without Tears, published in 1933, co-starring Jerry Herndon." "My leading man, then," put in Barbara Jean. "And in the later feature, A Night in Paris, not much later, only in 1934. Who do you think you are? Father Time in person?" "Absolutely," Danny retorted. Always. You are in the projection room trying to turn back the clock 20, 25, 30 years. You keep turning your back on today, and that's really sick. Real sick. Sick. And you, an agent, think you can tell me that? Why not?" Danny clapped himself on the chest. "Why not, when I am here with an appointment all set up with international films? Who wants you to star in a picture right now today?" Momentarily, the result reached Danny's expectation. Barbara Jean's eyes sparkled, her face brightened, and she whirled about the room excitedly. "I hope it's a musical," she exclaimed. I'd love to dance again. Or to play romantic roles, Danny. With scenes like those I saw this morning." She finished her pirouette underneath a large color portrait of a handsome man, attired in the fashions of the early 1930s. "Maybe I'll even make love with Jerry Herndon again. I did 3 pictures with him. One was A Night in Paris, with Jerry playing a young American officer. I was Claudette, the little French girl." She began to caress the life-size portrait, giving her words a foreign accent. "Oh, mon capitaine, tell me." "Cut," snapped Danny. "That was 30-odd years ago. ma chérie. That projection room across the hall is dark and cold and full of cobwebs. You're all tangled up in them. So get out in the sunshine and learn what it's like to live today. I'll meet with you in Saul's office at 3 o'clock. Marty Saul? You mean he's still with International? That's right, but he's mellowed with the years. I hope so. I never could get along with Marty Saul. Barbara Jean Trenton still couldn't get along with Marty Saul. It was proven the same afternoon. Barbara Jean arrived at International, overdressed, overly made up, and as coy as when she played those glamour roles of years before. Marty Saul, fat, paunch faced, overlooked all that as he chewed an appropriately fat cigar and studied a script then. We have a good part for you, Miss Trenton, Sal announced. You play the part of a mother. A mother? Barbara Jean froze. How old a mother? 40-ish, but still very vibrant, very much alive. As compared to what? A corpse? Or a paunchy old relic like you? I don't play mothers. I never have. And I suppose you never will. You're right, you won't. Not in any picture I have anything to do with, if you're going to get that particular. Danny Weiss injected himself as a peacemaker. Look, Barbie, he suggested. We could at least take the script along with us and read it. You take it and read it, broke in Barbara Jean, and you play it. You'd make a good mother, Danny. The way you've been mothering me. As for this crude, tactless man, she drew herself up haughtily and gave Sal a withering stare. I didn't like him when I was under contract here, and I don't like him now. All right, Miss Prima Donna. Sal was on his feet, waving his cigar angrily. Why don't you try crawling back into some of your old films and see how far you get? Maybe I'll just do that. Or maybe I'll do just that. With those final words, Barbara Jean flounced from the room while Danny shot a parting bolt at Sal. Don't think she won't, loudmouth. It took me weeks to haul her out of the projection room of hers, and now I've got to start all over. Danny Weiss was right. Barbara Jean said nothing until she was back on the familiar preserves of her own mansion. Then, as Danny was leaving, he remarked, Don't worry about today, Barbie. You're right. He is a mean guy. You're talking about Marty Stahl? Interrupted Barbara Jean. Why, he doesn't exist. That studio doesn't exist. This is the world, Danny, right in here from now on. I'm keeping the doors locked with drapes over the windows. I don't want any of the outside coming in. But Barbie, you can't just shut your eyes and say it doesn't exist because you can't see it. Oh, yes, I can. If I shut my eyes, it disappears. And if I wish hard enough, I can wish it away. As of this minute, this is the 1930s. This is a carefree world with charm and romance. That's not true, Barbie. It's nostalgic and nice, but it's phony. If I wish hard enough, I will make it real. I'll give a party, Danny. Tell all my old friends, Paul Nader, Jerry Herndon, and Steve Black. Tell them I'll be waiting here. Danny interrupted again, this time with a shout to overpower Barbara Jean's high, hysterical pitch. Barbie, Paul Nader has been dead 5 years. Jerry Herndon lives in Chicago. Steve Black hasn't been around since World War II. Barbie, you're wishing things that are gone. You're turning the mansion into a mausoleum. As Danny turned to go down the steps, Barbara Jean sprang to the front door, slamming it and bolting it. Steadily, almost defiantly, she strode through the doorway of the projection room. Sally was in the hallway and hurried after her, only to have Barbara Jean stop her with a firm pronouncement. Sally, I'm locking the door. I don't want to see anyone, not anyone. You understand. Yes, Miss Trenton. The door closed, and there was a click of a key in a lock. Some of the music from the movie soundtrack filtered through the door. Sally gave a despairing shrug and went on her way. 2 weeks passed. Every day, Danny Weiss showed up faithfully at the Trenton mansion, only to be flagged by the equally faithful Sally. Each time, Sally looked more tired and Danny looked more worried, until he finally arrived in a grim, determined mood. He gave the usual greeting. "Tell me, Sally, how is she?" "I can't tell you, Mr. Weiss," replied Sally. "She's in that room all the time, day and night. She lets me come in and bring her something to eat, but only if I swear that nobody else is with me. But I can swear to you, Mr. Weiss, sometimes I see her." "Go see her now," interrupted Danny. "Tell her I want to talk to her, just to tell her something. She will want to know. I I won't try to make her decide what she wants to do. I just want to hear her. I just want her to hear me out. You understand?" "Yes, Mr. Weiss, I'll tell her. If I see her." Sally entered the projection room and halted. As she closed the door behind her, instead of the movie scene or the beam of the white spotlight, the screen was diffused with a grayish flicker that filled the entire room with a particular twilight. Sally had entered a strange zone between the real and the unreal. Eyes still fascinated by the gray whirl, she moved slowly toward the screen until she tripped over the electrical cord and suddenly pulled it loose. The grayish twilight gave way to a white beam, and a voice spoke from beside the screen. "What is it, Sally?" The maid clapped her hands to her heart. "I didn't see you for a moment, Miss Trenton," she exclaimed. "Mr. Weiss is here to tell you something special." I'll buy that. I'll buy that. Danny is honest, and he smacks of the 1930s, though he won't admit it. Show him in." Danny entered to find Barbara Jean still wearing her projection room costume of black toreador pants and flimsy white silk blouse. Noting his appraising glance, she demanded, "What's the matter, Danny? Did you care for the merchandise? The merchandise is beautiful, but it looks as if it hasn't slept in a couple of weeks. It needs fresh air." "It's quite satisfied, Danny. Hail and farewell. The door out is the same one you came in." "Good. I'll tell that to an old friend of yours who is in town and wanted to come and see you, Jerry Herndon." The result fulfilled all of Danny's hopes. Barbara Jean ran her hands over her haggard face and stared down at her disheveled costume. "The way I look," she exclaimed, "no makeup, and I need some time to dress. How soon will Jerry be here?" "In a couple of hours. I'm picking him up at his hotel." Danny smiled as he watched Barbara Jean dash up the grand staircase with all the vigor of 30 years ago. At last, the lost past of Barbara Jean Trenton was coming alive. 2 hours later, Sally was all smiles as she ushered Danny Weiss and Jerry Herndon into the study, which had been hastily rearranged for this visit. Along with Jerry's portrait, dozens of stills from his old movies had been given prominent display. The pictures showed him in the robes of a sheik, the uniform of an army officer, the football togs of a college star, and half a dozen other parts that he had played with Barbara Jean. In all, the accent was on youth, showing a slender, buoyant Jerry Herndon, who was very, very much alive. "Boy, that was hot," Jerry recalled, referring to the chic costume. "Barbie and I were on location in Death Valley when they took that shot. You'd never get me into an outfit like that today, not unless a portable air conditioner was built in it." "Remember, Jerry," Danny warned, "Barbie's not well. Make a fuss over her and tell her how wonderful she looks. Play along with her whims. She needs your help. Here she comes." Footsteps sounded as Barbara Jean came flying down the stairs, beautifully dressed, wonderfully vibrant, and the absolute personification of her glamorous past. But she froze stock still as she reached the doorway, staring first at Danny, then at Jerry, finally beyond them both as though looking for someone else. Hello, Barbie, Jerry Herndon greeted. It's been a long time. It's been a long time no see. Lots of water gone over the dam. Barbara um, Barbara Jean recognized the voice and stared squarely at Jerry, her eyes widened, not in joyous recognition, but in stark disappointment. She at least looked to be the once famous Barbara Jean Trenton, but any resemblance of this man to the famous Jerry Herndon was purely coincidental. Instead of a sleek, slender, keen-eyed specimen of masculine vigor, Barbara Jean viewed a paunchy, balding, gray, middle-aged man who wore glasses. Barbara Jean spoke slowly and sadly. It's odd the way we think of people as they were. I thought you would be here on a white horse in a sheik's costume or an officer's uniform. I thought you'd be a young man, Jerry. I had a crazy idea that we'd do another picture together. No, no, Barbie, Jerry laughed. I gave up acting long ago. It went down the drain with my youth. You don't act anymore? What do you do? We're going to have to stop it here and find out what Jerry does now. Anyways, we've been reading from Rod Serling's Twilight Zone, 26 Unforgivable Explorations into the Realm of the Supernatural, adapted by Walter B. Gibson. And we've been specifically reading the 16mm Shrine. Now, if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, want to support me in any way, if you want to join the Discord server, all information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.